Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again, English Australia and the Mental Health SIG for putting this together. It's incredible. I also wanted to take Anita and Tori. Been very inspirational. I'm actually taking notes here and I didn't realize it was my turn to start talking. Anita, thank you for your exercise of courage, because before speaking I start to get a bit nervous. So that exercise was quite good to calm me, so to make me feel ready for this. So let me share my screen. Oopsie. See, here we go. I hope you can see. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Oopsie. They're not in order. All right. So thank you again. I'm here today to talk about Ihear You, which is a wellbeing program which was developed by me and International House Sydney Training Services in response to the new world challenges. So when we think about the pandemic and all this this new world that's been created, I usually think, like, before the pandemic, we kind of had this idea, or maybe like this fantasy, that humans were immune to basically anything, that nothing like really bad could happen. And then the pandemic hit and it shows us how, not show us, but like try to remind us how vulnerable we are and how fragile our mental health can be. And for me as a counselor, it's so important, to have this realization how important it is to feel stable, emotionally and mentally. So the pandemic really put a spotlight on, mental health. So before I move on and talk to Ihear You, I just want to talk a little bit about myself and my background. So as I was introduced by Shido, I am an immigrant. I'm originally from Brazil. I've been living in Australia for 20 years, but I do understand the challenges that our students face being an immigrant. I've got a background in psychology, and in the last 10 years, I've been working as a teacher in the Alico's industry. And I feel really, it's really good to hear from Tori saying, the trauma-informed teaching. And I think that has always been my approach. I have always been more flexible, more understanding, with my students, because I understand how traumatizing it can be, to have, a bad experience and being shamed in front of the classroom, in front of your peers. So I have always identified, the needs of my students outside the classroom. I feel that I have always gone a little bit beyond my role as a teacher. So when the pandemic hit, we had this realization when we went into lockdown and started teaching over Zoom. It was a shift for everyone. And so it was very evident that the students were struggling. Everyone was struggling, not only students, the teachers, and we family overseas, and our students, I could see they were scared. They were scared of losing their jobs. They were thinking about their families back home. So it was time for me and for International House to do something about it, to do something more focused. So that's how Ihear You was born. So Ihear You was born pretty much 2 years ago. So what is Ihear You? Ihear You is a counselling service provided by IH Sydney that aims to support our students with emotional and psychological needs. And that is one part of the program. And I completely agree with Anita when she said that we should be more proactive than reactive. So the counseling, the one-on-one, it is a reactive part. So when we flag a student, when a student reaches out, that's when we are reacting to a need. But another very important aspect of Ihear You is that raising awareness about mental health. without really, like, we don't really need to say, we don't really need to be, you know, talking about mental health, but it's pretty much opening the space for having those conversations, opening a space and creating a safe space in the classroom, outside the classroom, with the teachers, with the staff. That's okay to feel anxious. That's okay to feel sad and depressed and frustrated. Trauma is there. So it's just creating that safe space for everyone and for our students. So what was the rationale behind I Hear You? And of course, it was the pandemic that was that propelled us to actually do something more, as I said, focused and more explicit, but also our duty of care as a crisis provider. We do have a responsibility to look after students, to care for them, and to provide welfare, well-being support. And of course, you know, is in our best interest for our students to thrive, our students to progress and be happy. So if they're happy, if they're progressing, they're going to stay with us. That's what we want at the end of the day. So they come, they feel good, they progress, you know, they go up a level, and they're happy, they are in the best, in their full potential. So that's what we want. So, but as Tori was saying, and it's so interesting because it all comes together. If you experience trauma, if you are experiencing difficulties in your life, that will completely impact your ability to progress. That will impact your attention in classroom. You know, it's not that the student doesn't care, or that they're lazy, or they don't want to study, or that they're disrespectful. I don't believe that. I believe that there is something bigger that is impacting their ability to function. And that's our job as, now I'm talking as teachers, as, you know, counselors, as student advisors, as doctors, to be able to flag those students and to be able to offer them support. So I just thought I would share this with you, and I'm not going to get very specific about that. It's just something that I usually share with the students when they come and talk to me. So this is, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Maslow hierarchy of needs pyramid. So when a student comes to me and they are saying, oh, you know, I received a letter about to be reported because I'm not attending classes, or I'm not progressing, but I have no concentration. I just can't function at the moment. There's too much in my head. I can't do it. So when I show that to them in a way to help them to feel normal, to normalize what they're feeling. So basically what this pyramid is, it shows that we all have needs. And in order for us to thrive, we need to have those needs met. So we've got the basic needs at the bottom, which are physiological needs, our safety needs, our basic needs. And then we go up to psychological needs, which is like your belonging, your intimate relationships, your friendships, and then your esteem, your feeling of accomplishment. And then the top one, that's your self-fulfillment, that's your self-actualization, like when you achieve your full potential. That's where we would like to be, and that's where we want our students to be. But the catch is, if we don't have our bottom needs met, we can't move up the tiers in the pyramid. So when the student comes to me and they tell me all those stories, and I just normalize it to them. I just say, well, that's quite understandable that, you know, coming to class or paying attention to your teacher is the last thing on your list because, you know, maybe you lost your job, or you had a breakup, you broke up with your boyfriend, or you don't have accommodation, you're going to be kicked out of your house tomorrow and you need to find a job. So all of that is impacting the students to feel safe and feel relaxed to learn. We can't learn if we have other things in our head. So the reason why I'm showing that to you, that might be helpful. You might want to reflect on that. And again, just what Tori was saying about teachers, sometimes we assume that it's just students are just lazy, or students are just they're not interested. But I really and truly, I don't believe in that. And I feel that it's our job, again, to understand that, to offer empathy, and to come from a compassionate place to tell them genuinely that we understand what's going on. Because a lot of those things that are at the bottom of the needs, that are at the bottom of the pyramid, we take it for granted. But students, especially this cohort, they are at a high risk of experiencing poor mental health due to some reasons. So I'm going to talk about that next. So talk about our students. So at the moment, we have around 2,400 students at International House, and they are, just looking at the time, and they're studying ALICOS and VET across our 7 campuses. So those students, they are away from home, they are immersed in a new culture, they're speaking a new language, they're trying to learn a new language and trying to live, in a different city. And so that's for those reasons that makes them very vulnerable. So a lot of studies have shown, and Anita said, and there's a very sad statistic, about the number of suicide and depression among our international students. They are at a higher risk of experiencing poor mental health. Of course, the language barrier, when we can't communicate our needs, it puts us down. Like if you can't talk, and if you start to doubt yourself, we start to think that you are unworthy. And especially, if you're trying, like at work, for example, if your boss treats you like you're an idiot because, and the students start to feel, no, like I'm a lawyer in my country. Like I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm talking. I just don't know how to say this word. That it creates a lot of self-esteem issues for them. And that, coupled with isolation, not only from their family, but also from their culture. So that all those factors, they are interconnected. Finances. Students, when they come here, they have a limited budget, they have to work, they have to study, they can't afford, paying to see a psychologist or a counselor. So that will really prevent them from asking for help. Stigma is a big one as well. In many, many cultures, we don't talk about mental health, we don't talk about suicide, let alone in English. I'm not going to talk about that. So it puts them, in a difficult situation, and lack of support again. So if they are away from home, they don't have friends, they're away from families, the language barrier, everything, they just tend to, to put themselves in this bubble, and they don't know how to get out. So again, it is our job to create that bridge between the student, their needs, to identify what they need with, the community. So what are the reasons for referral? So how do these students come to me? So they do come to me when my team, with students or teacher trainers, they flag the students either because they're not performing, they're not progressing, or they are not attending a class. Sometimes the students reach out, and I love when that happens. So they send me an email, I need to talk to someone. And then, of course, when I sit down and speak to students, those reasons are just the tip of the iceberg. So it's not because I'm performing or, oh, I'm not coming to class, I got a letter. These are the reasons, right, behind that, the tip of the iceberg. Anxiety is a big one. Depression, financial pressure, learning difficulties. We have students with learning difficulties, with pre-existing learning difficulties, ADHD, dyslexia. Trauma, it is a big one. Sometimes an event in Australia has triggered a trauma experience and has, and then it brings to the surface Or sometimes the students go through traumatic experiences in Australia. I had a student, unfortunately, who was attacked in Melbourne. He was walking home, probably at 10 o'clock, and he was attacked because he's gay, and he was bashed, and he went to hospital, and he's traumatized, and it's been very challenging for him, you know, and then the lack of resources, and he had to pay for the ambulance, and so that is some things that we need to deal with. And without the support from the family, he didn't want to tell his family, he didn't want to worry them. So who does he talk to? You know, no support, no network. So that's when, you know, having me, and he's working with a social worker as well, helping him to find resources and find funds to pay back the ambulance and the hospital. And then drug, alcohol abuse. So these are, you know, the reasons why students come to see me. Now let me move on to how, you know, this program works. So as I said, there's two parts of Ihear You. So this one is the one-on-one sessions. So they are either referred to me by a staff member or they contact me directly. They are eligible for 4 sessions. The sessions are via Zoom, most of them, or face-to-face if the students prefer. I've had a student with ADHD, and he prefers to see me in person. It's very difficult for him to do it via Zoom. Sessions are 50 minutes. So the way that I approach the sessions, it's just by a brief therapy approach. It's more practical. It's more solution oriented rather than, you know, a therapeutical relationship. 4 sessions are not enough. But so what we do, together we identify what is causing them, you know, to struggle or to suffer, what are the challenges, and together we try to make a plan. And then I keep seeing them every week or every 2 weeks, depends on each student. If at the end of those 4 sessions, we feel that they still need more support, we can, you know, extend that and offer them more sessions, or I can refer them to external services. I usually deal with GPs as well, psychiatrists, hospitals, whatever it is that, you know, we try to get them as much support as we can. So that's part of my job. Now we're going to talk about the other part of Ihear You. So this is a big, and it's very important, and I'm going to quote Anita again. It is about being proactive, not really reactive. So students are not going to reach out. And this is something that I've learned, you know, I had to learn just by, you know, doing it, because I didn't know much about this. They're not going to reach out just because they know that there is a counsellor. They know that there is a counsellor at school. They see that on their newsletters, or every week, you know, when the student services are promoting something, they tell, oh, you know, if you're feeling sad, just go and talk to the counsellor. Forget about it. They're not going to reach out. They need to connect with you, and they need to feel that you are real, that you speak their language. So how do we do that? We do that by promoting webinars for staff, for student group sessions. I try to be in the campuses as much as I can. Social media, so creating like TikToks and Instagram reels, just making it fun. We need to speak the students' language. And again, you know, we don't want it to make it clinical. We don't want it just to be boring and just say, oh, mental health. No, we just talk about things that are important to students. We talk about relationships, we talk about mental health, we talk about how to find a job, all those things that will really enhance the experience in Australia. It's not just about mental health, it's all the areas, all the aspects of the student's life that will make this experience good for them. And again, as Anita said, and I'm sorry, I'm just quoting her a lot, but I made so much notes. Mental health is not having any symptoms. It's just how to deal with them and how to acknowledge that you have challenges in your life, but you're aware of them and you can do the best you can, and having support for that. So that is our job. Challenges. We do have challenges. We have had challenges in the past and we still do. The biggest challenge that I find is stigma across the board, not only from students, but from staff, from teachers, from myself, from the whole community. We're still talking about those topics is difficult. We don't like it. It triggers us. So, just overcoming that stigma, it is a challenge. Language barriers, but for me, it is hard for us to ask for help, let alone for students who need to speak that in English. So I find sometimes it takes me 2 to 3 sessions to really understand what's going on with the student, because the language is a problem. Another challenge that we face is attracting those students. How do we engage them? So that's why I have the marketing team with me, student services. We work really close together so we can promote activities that are fun, but at the same time, it will enhance and we will improve their mental health. And involving the whole...
Nada, sorry to interrupt you, but can we wrap up a little bit, because we're running over time? Yeah.
Yes, but that's it. That was the last one. So just how to involve the whole community, and that's important. So I'm not in the campuses 24/7. So the teachers are there, the student services, the DOSs. So how do we involve the community? How do we make them comfortable talking about mental health and normalizing it? So in this way, the students will feel safer to reach out. So that's it for me. Again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm happy to connect with you. I love to collaborate with all of you, and we can together raise more awareness about mental health for our students, and we can, I don't know, maybe have an event, or I don't know, I'm very passionate about that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them in a Q&A box.
Thank you, Fernanda. That was